Okay, let's do our opening puja. Let us pay homage to the Buddha. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Okay, let's put our palms together and chant the verses. Offering of light. Light symbolizes wisdom. May the light of Dhamma dispel the darkness of ignorance. Offering of incense. Incense symbolizes the fragrance of pure moral conduct. This reminds us to cultivate good conduct. Offering of water. Water symbolizes purity, clarity, and calmness. It reminds us to practice the Buddha's teachings, to cleanse one's mind, which is full of desires, ill will, and delusion, to attain the state of purity. Offering of fruits. Fruits symbolize the ultimate fruit of enlightenment, which is our goal. They also remind us that all actions will have their effects. Offering of flowers. Flowers symbolize impermanence. The freshness, fragrance, and beauty of flowers are impermanent. This reminds us that we should all live in the present. Remembering thus, we should reduce our craving and attachment. Salutation to the Triple Gem. Let us pay respects to the Triple Gem. Arahang Sama Sambuddho Bhagava Buddhang Bhagavantang Abhivademi. Swakato Bhagavata Dhammo Dhammang Namasami. Supatipano Bhagavato Sawaka Sangho Sanghang Namami. We chant these verses for taking the three refuges. Buddhang Saranang Gacchami, Dhammang Saranang Gacchami, Sanghang Saranang Gacchami, Dutiyampi Buddhang Saranang Gacchami, Dutiyampi Dhammang Saranang Gacchami, Dutiyampi Sanghang Saranang Gacchami, Tatyampi Buddhang Saranang Gacchami, Tatyampi Dhammang Saranang Gacchami, Tatyampi Sanghang Saranang Gacchami. We chant these verses to observe the 5 precepts. Panatipata Veramani Sikkhapadang Samadhiyami. Adinna dana viramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami. Kamesu michachara viramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami. Musavada viramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami. Sura meraya majapamadatana viramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami. Recollection of the Buddha. Let us recollect the sublime qualities of the Buddha. Itipiso bhagava arahang samma sambuddho Vijjacharana sampano sugato lokavidu anuttaro purisa dhammasarati satta deva manusanang buddho bhagavati. Recollection of the Dhamma. Let us recollect the sublime qualities of the Dhamma. Swakato Bhagavata Dhammo Sanditiko Akaliko Ehipasiko Opanaiko Pachattang Veditabo Vinyuhiti. Recollection of the Sangha. Let us recollect the sublime qualities of the Sangha. Supatipano Bhagavato Sawaka Sango Ujupatipano Bhagavato Sawaka Sango Nyayapatipano Bhagavato Sawaka Sango Sami Chipatipano Bhagavato Sawaka Sango Yadidang Chatari Purisa Yugani Atta Purisa Pugala Esa Bhagavato Sawaka Sango Ahuneyo Pahuneyo Dakineyo Anjali Karaniyo Anuttarang Punya Ketang Lokasati. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Good morning, brothers and sisters in the Dhamma. Welcome to Buddhist Fellowship, our normal Sunday service. First, we have some announcements as usual. Next Sunday, we will have Venerable Hasapanya with us, talking about cultivating the 5 spiritual qualities and the 4 roads to power. She will be, the talk will be recorded and simultaneously broadcast over here, as well as to everybody on our Facebook and YouTube. Other Sundays, we also have Venerable Arjun Achalo, and Bante Buddha Rakita with us the next 2 Sundays. And not forgetting, on the 16th, we have our AGM. For those who have not signed up, please sign up by the 9th of this month. We have Dhamma sharing by the BF youths, age 17 to 25, every Saturday. So the different speakers will be speaking each week, except for the 22nd and the 29th. They have activities on the 22nd and 29th. There is no service. Indonesian service, they have 23rd, Bante Atadiro, and the 30th sharing by Brother Luis. The May Junior Youth, they have Saturday 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. for ages 13 to 16. The lessons, the the 1st of May was over already. And then they have exam break. And the 29th is the pursuit of happiness. Okay, Buddhist Fellowship AGM is open to all members. Please do sign up. It's both on site physically as well as on Zoom. Please choose which one you would like to attend. Physical attendance is limited to 50, and we will be discussing our future home. So do come and support and listen to what the EXCO have so far made their survey and recommendations, as well our updates on what has been happening at BF as well as future programs. Oh, we have another BF Junior 7 to 9 as well as 10 to 12. There's a Vesak special combined session on the 23rd of May. And of course, Bante for the Indonesian service on the Sunday, 23rd of May, Bante Atadiro Tera will be speaking. Vesak Eve special on Tuesday, 25th of May. I think the on-site physical ones is totally full. So, but you can Zoom, you can go to live Facebook, BF's Facebook to watch our live streaming. So it's 7:30. There will be a Dharma talk by Ajahn Brahmali, followed by guided meditation by Sister Sylvia Bay here, of course, but for those seeing the live streaming, it will be over the Facebook. And then we have candlelight aspirations led by Sister Sylvia Bay. And we close for the service after that, because the next morning we have our Vesak Day program, which is a long day program. So from morning to evening, morning session is full, afternoon session, I'm not sure whether it's full or not. Evening session is by live streaming. So do come and share the joy, as well as make offerings to Sayale Sujata. There will be offerings to the Buddha, flowers and light offerings to the Buddha, and the other robes and hamper requisite offerings to Sayale Sujata. And of course, morning sessions, we have some VIPs coming, Minister Iswaran, as well as the MP for Teluk Blangah, Miss Rachel Ong. Oh, our Vesak retreat, do sign up for our Vesak retreat and come to the hotel to practice together with your Kalyana Mitra. The hotel is fully sanitized and with a special solution, and so it's quite safe. I can't guarantee though, but but so far the last December we had it there. It's very good and conducive to practice. So do book for twin sharing as well as single sharing. And there's also a conference only if you want to, but that will be a bit tiring for a full day there at the hotel. That one has no rooms, only conference. Okay, next we have guided meditation by Ajahn Brahm. Let's dim the lights.
With your eyes closed, bring your attention first of all to your body sitting here. And please relax your body. How do you relax your body? By being mindful of your body and being kind to it. What do I mean? We can start with your legs. Ask your legs. Legs, how do you feel right now? And keep asking that question until you get an answer. Just imagining your legs to be like separate living beings. When you ask a question of your legs with respect, sometimes my legs tell me that they need to be adjusted, moved. I listen, which means the mindfulness is starting to work. It's not just being aware, it's getting to know. And the kindness means that I change my posture slightly. I often spend a long time with my body when I'm meditating, at the very beginning, to make sure it's all fine. But we've only got a few minutes, so then go to your bottom, your buttocks. I say that because sometimes people's buttocks get sore sitting on a cushion or on a chair. So we want to relax to the max so we're comfortable. It's not just indulgence. This is simple kindness to your own body. And then move up to your back. Just imagining your back to need a big stretch. The reason I do that, I've just been living in forests all my life, and even in Australia, see even kangaroos do stretching exercises. These are native wild kangaroos. So I do a big stretch of my body at the beginning and just feeling all these chemicals going into my body, just painkillers, immune enhancers, until my back, it feels really great. And then I relax the muscles of my shoulders. Spend some time on my shoulders because they often have a lot of aches on them. I imagine those muscles being pulled apart by two invisible demons, actually four, two on each side. And I let go. Let go of stretching. Let go of stress. Allowing those muscles just to be. And they respond. My awareness of those muscles, you can relax them almost at any time. Oh, that's great. Then I look at my hands. Where are the hands supposed to be? It doesn't really matter. You put your hands in a place which you feel to be comfortable. And ask your hands, like your hands were separate entities from you. Hands, how do you feel? Do you need to be moved? And then you can move back up to your shoulders and neck to make sure that the head is well balanced on top of the neck. Not too far to the left, not too far to the right, not too far forward or too far back. Nicely balanced. And even in your throat, if you have any tickly sensation like I have now, I do have allergies. It's part of what I inherited from my father who had asthma. Just be kind to your throat. Find ways of relaxing it. And then move up to your face. In your face, there's many muscles which stretch, scrunch up because of your emotions. And by relaxing the muscles on your face, you can also relax some of the emotions. So I feel the muscles around my eyes. I loosen them all. And around my mouth too. And once I've just done a quick scan of my body, I next become aware of my body just as one unit, just one whole. The whole purpose is to be aware and kind enough to relax everything. Because I've been doing this for years, I noticed that when I deliberately relax my body with mindfulness and kindness, I get this delightful feeling, the delight of having a body which is much more at peace than usual. It's the same delight which people pay a lot of money for, to go to some beach in Bali on a recliner, or to have a body massage, or to go in a hot tub. I do that just automatically, mindful and kind. And I enjoy that delightful feeling. Delight is part of meditation. I just stay there for a few seconds. And then we go deeper inside to our mind. How peaceful are you, or how agitated are you? There's something which I hope you've heard me teach about the peace orbiter, like a thermometer, speedometer. How peaceful are you? Given a number from 1 to 10. 10 is agitated, 1 is very peaceful. What makes that reading go up to more disturbance? What makes that reading go down to more peace? For any one of you who wants to know where this fits in, this is almost third Satipatthana. What causes disturbance to the mind? What stops a disturbance? You're putting your awareness on peace, peace of mind. You don't think peace, you experience peace. And those of you who like to watch your breathing, just watch your breath, experiencing it, but don't sacrifice peace. Be kind to this moment, opening the door of your heart to whatever you're experiencing right now. and experiencing it. Don't think about it. Go deeper inside in the thoughts. The silence which exists in the present moment. Just here, relaxing, making no plans, making no judgments. Grant to yourself these moments of peace. You deserve them. How do you feel now? What's it like in your mind, your emotional world? How much peace can you feel? And how relaxed is your body? And how joyful does it feel? The time is up now. Instead of ringing the gong, I just ask you to slowly open your eyes and come out from your meditation and smile. Yeah,
Thank you, Arjun,
thank
Brahm.
you.
Hope you all had a quiet sitting and now open your mind to the talk by Dr. Ho Yu Chin. Let me introduce Dr. Ho, a short bio. Dr. Ho is a senior consultant, otolaryngologist at Tan Tock Seng Hospital. He is a fellow of the Royal College of Surgeons of England and the Academy of Medicine Singapore, and holds a Master of Medical Education from the University of Warwick. His clinical and research interests are in the management of chronic ear diseases, hearing and balance disorders. Dr. Ho endeavors towards a humanistic practice of clinical medicine. He volunteers with SUCHI, International Medical Association. Dr. Ho believes in empowering patients with robust knowledge of their health conditions by giving free public talks regularly. So Dr. Ho, who is supposed to be with us this morning, has excused himself because of the Tan Tock Seng cluster. So today he will be Zooming with us on gratitude and generosity, pathways towards peace and contentment. We are very fortunate to have Dr. Ho with us. Over to you, Dr. Ho.
Thank you, Sister Eileen and Brother Richard. And also thank you to Ajahn Brahm for leading the meditation this morning. So brothers and sisters, uncles and aunties, friends, a very good morning to all of you. My name is Yu Chin, and I would like to thank Buddhist Fellowship for inviting me to share some of my reflections with you this morning. Now, for those of you who know me, I have always been a reluctant Dharma speaker, as I am not a Dharma scholar. I have shared at BF previously, but I had always hoped that I won't be invited back again, as I always feel that like I have run out of topics to share on. But anyway, I'm here again today, and I suppose as a normal human being, I'm like you, trying my best to incorporate the Dharma into my daily life. And in this journey, I have frequently encountered challenges and obstacles. And like you, I have always been very grateful to the many Dharma masters whom I have encountered in my life, either in person or through listening to their talks or through reading their books. For these have continued to inspire me to never give up on doing my best to live a wholesome life and to try and be a better human being who can contribute positively to society. Hence, today I would like to share on my reflections on two important principles that I feel can serve as powerful pathways towards a peaceful and contented life: gratitude and generosity. So let's start by Googling the definition of both words. For gratitude, it's a noun, right? It's defined as the quality of being thankful, to show readiness, to show appreciation for, and to return kindness. And for generosity, is the quality of being kind and generous. There is a second definition, which is that the quality or fact of being plentiful or large. I think most of us are quite comfortable with the meaning. But as lay Buddhists, I would say that these are powerful qualities that if we are able to truly internalize, will have positive, profound impact on our lives. Now, I'm sure most of you will agree that it's actually very easy to say that I have gratitude, or I'm trying to be grateful or thankful for what I have. But as often the case, it's not actually that easy to be universally grateful for everything that we have or everything that comes our way. The same goes for generosity, right? Most of us are probably carrying out charitable acts regularly, giving freely, or even doing some charity work ourselves. But again, if we reflect on it, giving money or something material, often these are some of the easier things to do. What may be harder may be to give our time, right? Giving emotional support, giving kind words and actions, showing kindness and empathy, or even smiling a little bit more. These are the acts of giving that are perhaps not so easy and may not come so spontaneously, and may not be something that we do all the time. Now, if you look within the Dharma concept, right, let's start with the four Brahma Viharas, right? Or these are the four immeasurable virtues that as Buddhists, as Dharma practitioners, we should be doing our best to cultivate. And I'm sure these four qualities, the four virtues, are something that we are familiar with. Let's start with metta, which is the quality of having loving kindness towards all beings, all living beings. Karuna, which is that of having compassion and empathy, and again, towards all living beings. Mudita, that is empathetic joy. Perhaps easier said than done, because it's about being able to rejoice in other people's happiness and joy, and not to feel envy, not to feel jealousy. And then moving on to upekkha, which is that of the virtue of having even-mindedness and serenity, meaning that we don't overreact to things that are happening, coming our way, whether they're happy things or sad things. It's not about putting too much of a value to that and say, oh, this is a happy event, this is a sad event, and not to overreact, not to be too joyful, not to be too sad when things happen. And a lot of the time it's said that these four virtues are best developed through mindfulness practice, and I agree. being able to develop mindfulness, being able to meditate will go a long way in helping us develop these qualities. Then we look on to the 10 paramitas, right? The 10 virtues, right? Dana, Sila, that's generosity and morality. And it's interesting that generosity comes at number 1. There's also renunciation, wisdom, diligence, patience, truthfulness, determination, loving kindness, and equanimity. So some overlap with the 4 Brahma Viharas. But day to day, I suppose we don't always remember all these 10 paramitas in our day to day life. But I suppose it's less hard if we can just remember on 2 qualities for us to constantly cultivate, because if we could cultivate these 2 qualities, they will go a long way in helping us develop all the other qualities. So gratitude and generosity. So let me move on to my next slide. Now, I remember quite clearly that nearly a year ago, I was sitting in front of the same computer screen at home, because at that time, we were just exiting the circuit breaker. And I suppose at that time, the topic that was perhaps the most relevant was to share on the COVID-19 situation and how we could actually find a silver lining during that challenging period. And when I was preparing for this talk recently, I was really hoping not to touch on COVID at all, as I'm sure with most of you, including myself, there's already quite a deep degree of COVID fatigue, right? I'm not sure if you all agree with me. COVID is in the news every day. It's either in Singapore or what's happening around the world. And I was really hoping to talk about anything but COVID. But then I suppose life is the never-ending lesson, isn't it? Whilst most of us can't help but dream about when life can return to normal again, recent turn of events means that I suppose we are distracted by COVID again. Certainly, myself being a clinician at Tan Tock Seng Hospital, the last 72 hours plus, lots of messages, lots of emails about the current situation. Then I'm sure we would prefer to think about when we could travel again, right? Rather than to think of COVID. And perhaps that trip to Hong Kong for those of us who have managed to get ticket. But again, that bubble, will it be happening? I think that remains to be seen. I suppose as Dharma practitioners, we are once again reminded of the true nature of life, that it can really be unpredictable. And more often than not, we don't have full control over how things go in our life, right? No matter how much we like to think we are in control, our circle of control tends to be much, much smaller than our circle of influence, let alone our circle of concern, right? If you look at this, what's on the screen, the biggest circle in purple, that's about our wider world, everything that's happening around the world. We can't be thinking about everything as much as we like to, so there's a smaller circle within the purple circle. That is a circle of our concern, things that concern us. And I suppose that circle can be pretty big as well. But then if you think about what we could actually influence, right? That would be a much smaller circle. Some things we're not able to control, but we could influence directly or indirectly. But the actual things, the areas that we could actually control, the circle of control is actually very, very small, right? So I suppose this diagram is just a good reminder about the reality in life. I was actually looking forward to speaking in person at BF in front of you, some real human beings, instead of having to talk to the computer screen again. And like many of you, I do yearn for some real face-to-face human interactions, and in real time as well. I have been fully vaccinated against COVID since January this year, for which I'm very grateful to be, given the opportunity to get the vaccination early. And very recently, I had had a negative COVID test as well. In fact, the result just came through at 4 o'clock this morning. But I suppose out of an abundance of precaution, I suppose it would be better if we don't tempt fate and end up with a BF cluster. That would be the worst case scenario. Hence, I'm extremely grateful this morning to Sister Hui Kim, Sister Eiling, and Brother Richard for facilitating today's talk via Zoom at a very short notice. Being in the epicenter of the latest and largest COVID cluster at the moment, it would be too easy to start feeling depressed and scared, right? A sense of deja vu, as last year when I was doing my sharing with you, we were again in the epicenter. At that time, I was on duty at the NCID, which is the National Center for Infectious Diseases, which is just across the road from Tan Tock Seng Hospital. This is a picture of the NCID. It's the building on the right. And this picture is taken from the front entrance of Tan Tock Seng Hospital. Now, during that period, there was a large number of returning Singaporeans and Singapore residents, many from Europe and the United States. I'm going back to June last year when I last did the sharing with you. Many of the returning Singaporeans were students, but there were also many people who have been working abroad. I remember back in that time at the screening center at NCID, most of these returning Singaporeans would have come directly from Changi Airport. Literally, they step off the plane, they clear immigration, and they would have been transported to NCID. They would have arrived with their luggage, they would be jet lagged, and many look scared and tired, right? Some of them were obviously sick and were almost certainly to be COVID positive, because if we could remember back in June, July time, that was the time when COVID was really out of control in many of the Western countries. The healthcare was overwhelmed and the death rate was sadly very high. Some of the people, they were grumpy, but it was easy to understand how they felt, right? Considering the journey that they have gone through. A few were rude, complaining about the long wait, but actually the vast majority of them were just grateful to be home, right? And of course, to have access to healthcare. Most of them were grateful that we, the healthcare teams, were working around the clock to screen every single returning Singaporean so that those who were COVID positive or were at high risk could be quarantined immediately and could be looked after depending on how sick they were. Of course, this would also mean that they won't get to see their families immediately or to enjoy their favorite hawker food, which I'm sure they were looking forward to. But I'm sure they also appreciated that this quarantine was necessary to get COVID under control. And we did get COVID under control for a little while, several weeks, until the dormitory clusters started happening, right? And sorry, my slides are slightly out of order. Yeah, those were the slides. And again, there were panic and fear. But again, we got that under control. It wasn't easy, took a few months, and lots of people to make it happen. Thousands of healthcare workers were involved, going out to the dormitories to screen the workers. There were also many acts of kindness from the public. Many sent letters and artwork to try and cheer the workers up. Some went out of their way. I remember this touching video showing a Singapore doctor who was of Bengali descent. He was able to speak the same language as our Bangladeshi foreign workers. I remember watching this video of him walking through the dorm with a loud hailer speaking in Bengali, trying his best to reassure the migrant workers that the Singapore government would look after them, that if they needed healthcare, that would be provided and the cost would be covered. right? Reassuring them that they will not be left behind. I have no doubt that our migrant workers were very grateful for the care provided. At that time as well, things were not doing so well in their home countries. They were aware of the high number of cases back in Bangladesh and even India back then. And they knew they were a lot safer in Singapore than back home. So again, we got that under control. Then we went through quite a long period where there were relatively few community cases. In fact, we had several stretches where there were 0 community cases. And of course, we celebrated. We exited the circuit breaker. First, stage 1, then stage 2, and now, of course, we are in stage 3, and we've been in stage 3 for many months now. And thinking about the wider Singapore community, bar a few businesses like karaoke lounges, almost all shops and businesses are now back in action, right? Of course, for some industries, there's still no light at the end of the tunnel. For example, if you happen to be working in the airline industry or travel industry, and yes, I do feel really, really sad for those who are still affected and will continue to be affected for the foreseeable future. And then the news over the last 72 hours, right? I'm sure many of you are constantly looking up for news updates. And of course, it's been said as well, the news just came through this morning that one of the patients that were tested COVID positive several days ago had unfortunately passed away. And we pray for her and her family, and we pray for the recovery of the other patients and staff who have been affected. Many of them are either quarantined or stay home notice, no leave of absence. So many staff has been affected, and of course patients and also their relatives. I suppose at this point, what's going through your mind, right? Oh dear, are we heading towards another circuit breaker? To be honest, I don't know at this point. And the best case scenario is that the cases in Tan Tock Seng and within the community will stabilize and then gradually drop down to 0 again. May take a week or 2, perhaps longer. But we also know that it could head the other way too. And we really had messages from the government that more drastic action would be needed should the need arise. So what then do we do at this point? Do we feel angry, fearful? Do we despair? Feeling frustrated? Perhaps some of us may even feel a sense of unfairness, right? That we, the whole Singapore community, right? We have sacrificed so much, we have put up with so much inconveniences, and yet COVID keeps coming back to haunt us. I suppose at this point then, perhaps we should start to think differently. How about feeling grateful? How about having gratitude for what we have so far? So I think this reflection of gratitude is perhaps something that we may not think about so much, but I think now is the time for us to reflect on all the things that we ought to be grateful for. We can start with our government, right? To be fair, yes, the response hasn't been perfect, especially in the early days. But by and large, I think our government has got most of the things done right. And the truth is that many public health experts from around the world have nothing but praise for the way Singapore has managed COVID-19. In fact, recently Singapore had been rated by Bloomberg to be the best place to be during the pandemic. You may agree or disagree, right? But I think it doesn't change the fact that we need to be grateful for the many people in leadership positions having sleepless nights trying to work out the best response. I can share with you that the people in leadership position at Tan Tock Seng Hospital, definitely the last few days and nights have been very, very stressful for them. in trying to work out the best response and how to manage the situation. How do we keep the essential services at Tan Tock Seng Hospital going and yet protect our patients, protect our staff? Leadership at MOH as well. It's not an easy time. Many people have worked very hard, and I know that they have gone through a massive screening program for all the current inpatients. In fact, they managed to screen the more than 1,000 inpatients within a 24-hour period, starting from early Friday morning. And over the weekend, they're going to screen, finish screening more than 4,500 staff in Tan Tock Seng Hospital, and who are at highest risk from COVID. And next week, they would have to then probably screen the remaining 4,500 staff, because we have close to 10,000 staff in Tan Tock Seng Hospital and NCID. So I think it would not be wrong to reflect and to be thankful for the many people working very hard to get things under control again. And at the moment, and also for the last year, in fact, it's been more than a year, right? I mean, COVID, I think the first case of COVID in Singapore was around Chinese New Year last year, January, February time. So we are fast approaching a year and a half now, right? And besides being grateful to the many healthcare workers that we have, and of course, to be grateful for the excellent healthcare facilities, we must not forget the many thousands of other frontline workers, essential workers who are not in healthcare. And because it's easy to remember, to forget that they're out there continuing to serve Singapore and to ensure that Singapore keeps going, right? For example, the transportation workers, right? Our taxi drivers, bus drivers, and train operators. What about the cleaners, keeping all the facilities clean? Supermarket workers, hawkers, and other F&B workers, ensuring that all of us do not go hungry, whether we need fresh food or cooked food. If we don't have time to cook, right, we don't go hungry for the last year and a half, especially during the circuit breaker period. And there are many others as well. We must not forget the police, SCDF, the utility workers who are keeping our electricity going, our water supply going, waste collection, right? The list is very, very long. These people have worked very hard to ensure our society does not collapse, even during the circuit breaker, right? Now, we may complain of not being able to leave our homes during the circuit breaker, right? We've been through it. This was about more than a year ago, about losing our freedom, losing our jobs, losing our income for some of us. We may feel frustrated, anger, fatigue. And yet, we forget that for those of us who had to work during the circuit breaker, yes, they had their jobs, but they had their fears too, right? Because at that time, the community cases were much higher. It was widespread. So I'm sure they must have felt terrified of coming down with COVID themselves or bringing the virus home to their families. So I think we have a lot to be thankful for. And we must not forget that we have pulled through the worst of the pandemic so far, right? The Singapore society has remained resilient. Yes, a lot of financial assistance have been provided by our government, and we must not forget to thank our taxpayers, because that's where the money came from. And we need to thank the many millions of people now and those who have come before us, right? Who have worked very hard to help build up our country and to help our country build up our financial reserves, right? Because it's these financial reserves that we have to dig into now to mitigate the economic impact of our pandemic. Many of us have benefited from the financial assistance. Businesses have been given some breathing space so that they don't have to close down. And then for those of us who are unfortunate to lose our jobs, there have been financial support until we could get alternative employment. Um, but I think now is also the time that, beyond the circuit breaker, right? And we are in phase three, as I've said, and we have been phase three for a long time. As our lives gradually return to normal, we also need to continue to reflect on the many others that we ought to be grateful to. And I like to pay some, these are our cleaners in Tan Tock Seng Hospital, but I like to perhaps focus to reflect on sometimes the forgotten people, right? Our dormitory migrant workers. Many of them are in construction and manufacturing and technical support jobs. And in fact, they are almost wholly doing the sort of jobs that many Singaporeans would not ever want to do, right? The sort of jobs that they do are often labeled as a 3D, right? I'm not sure if you heard about the 3D. These are jobs that are considered dangerous, dirty, and degrading, right? It's not me that have put the label up, but these are some of the labels that have been given to the jobs by other people. And yet, it's so easy to forget, right, that these are the people who have built Singapore over the generations, from our parents' generation until now, right? And they are the ones who have provided us with the infrastructure that we have so easily taken for granted. Our healthcare facility, first and foremost, right? But then beyond that, our roads, our transportation network, the MRT network, and which is still ongoing, right? We are doubling the number of MRT lines, and our homes, right? Virtually every single one of our homes, whether it's a HDB, condo, or other private properties, they have been built on the sweat and blood of our foreign migrant workers, our office towers, our shopping malls. In fact, virtually every single infrastructure has been built by them. And yet, how often do we stop to say thank you to this group of people, right? How often do we smile and wish them good morning if we happen to bump into them on our way to work or on our way back from work, right? These people are separated from their families back home. If they're lucky, they will get to see their families once a year. Often it's a lot less than that. And many of them have been here for decades, right? Some of the migrant workers whom I treat in my capacity as a doctor, they've been here for 20 over years. And we forget that they continue to risk their lives daily, right? Whether at the construction sites. Lately, there's been a sad increase in the number of accidents and at work, leading to injuries and also deaths, and our thoughts always go out to those who are affected and their families back home. And in fact, recently the news as well, we forget that they risk their life every day, just getting from their dorm to their workplace, right? And back again, because they travel in the back of the trucks, right? Something that I'm sure most of us would not consider acceptable for ourselves, right? The way they have to travel. But of course, all of this is, I suppose, some may say, is in the interest of keeping the cost low, keeping the cost down, because we in Singapore, we are always complaining about the high cost of living, how everything, the cost of everything seems to be going up, right? The cost of our properties and, right? So I suppose this phenomenon of them traveling in the trucks rather than in proper buses could be seen as a cost-saving measure. I'm not saying whether it's right or wrong. I have my own thoughts about it, but I will not pass judgment here. But this is just fact, right? What's happening in our society. And it's important for us to reflect and to be aware of what's going on. Because even prior to the pandemic, right, you would often hear people, right, our own Singaporeans, frequently complaining of how our migrant workers are the reason why our buses and MRT trains are so crowded. Of course, we don't have that problem at the moment. Currently they are not operating at 100% capacity for, because people are still working from home. But before the pandemic, right, overcrowding was a problem, and it was so easy to just blame the foreign workers, right? And it's very sad when I hear some people even going as far as to say that, oh, the foreign workers should be banned from our public transport, right? It's a real irony considering that the people who have built up our public transport are then, some people are even suggesting that we should bar them from using it. Very unfair, very unjust. But we hear these comments all the time, right? Thoughtless, selfish in a way. And I suppose the COVID pandemic is a time for us to reset things, right? Reset how our relationship with our migrant workers, how we think about them, how we should, our relationship with them. And I think definitely there should be a wholesome transformation. We need to be more thankful to them, right? Now, because if you consider the living environment, right, I know the government is talking about building new dormitories where it's less crowded, better facilities. Currently they are sharing up to 16, 20 to a dorm. I'm sure most of us cannot imagine living in this sort of environment, right? Sharing a room with 20 other people. And yet this is what these workers have to go through. And even in the new dorms, it will still be 8 to 10 to a room, right? And perhaps with better toilet and washing facilities, but still, yeah, it's nothing like the comfort and luxury, if I may even say, that most of us enjoy, right? So I think I just want to say, back to the current situation, where currently there seem to be quite a lot of uncertainties. Let us go through this together, even if there are further lockdowns and restrictions. Let us all stay calm and united. I think together we can get through this phase. And as I've said earlier, we should take the opportunity for the current situation to reflect on the many things and the many people that we should be grateful to. And this is also an opportunity for us to give, right? To be generous, to be kind, to be compassionate. At the very least, let us willingly give up some of our convenience, our freedom, without complaint, right? Sometimes I think within the Singapore society, we find it too easy to just complain, right? The truth is that even if we were to go into circuit breaker or other lockdown, we'll be fine if we don't get to watch a movie in the cinema. We won't starve if we don't get to eat in our favorite restaurant, because all these are temporary. We know that things will improve, right? And in fact, better still, let us reach out to those who are worse off than us, right? And as I mentioned, the biggest group of people that we need to reach out to are our migrant workers in the dorm, right? And I think the current situation back in India, I don't like to have to compare, but I suppose this is something that's in the news every day. I think most of you will agree that the situation in India is very sad, very tragic. And just recently, they've recorded more than 400,000 new COVID cases. And many experts have said that this is an underestimation, and the true numbers is probably many times more. So the true numbers, what is it, 2-3 million new cases a day? I mean, these are numbers that we cannot even imagine, right? And if you think about our migrant workers, right, many of them are from India, Bangladesh. They have families back home, right? I'm sure almost every single one of them would have had at least a family member who'd been affected. There would have been deaths in the family. Someone who is dying literally as we speak because they cannot get access to oxygen. Imagine not being able to return home, to spend some time with them, to say goodbye. Imagine not being able to pay your last respect, So I think really for our migrant workers, not only are they suffering in the sense that they have lost their freedom, right? Because we know that during this phase 3, a lot of us have had our freedom back. We could go shopping, we could go and eat. There are restrictions, of course, but many of the dorm workers on their day off, they can't really leave the dorm. They need extra special permission to do so. So can you imagine losing your freedom and at the same time worrying about your loved ones at home and feeling helpless, not being able to do anything about it? And when we read the news, watch the news, I'm sure we feel sadness, but imagine if you actually know someone, your own family member is dying, I'm sure that sadness, you can magnify it 100 times, even more. How about us taking it to the next step? Can we give during this period? Because it's about generosity as well. Many of us would have friends, neighbors, or even colleagues who are from India. I think we should reach out to them, right? Ask them how we can help, right? Um, could it be they need money to buy oxygen tanks and oxygen concentrators? Maybe to buy more protective um, equipment, what we call the PPEs, right? For the healthcare workers, for the undertakers. Sometimes it may not be easy to help directly, right? Because even if you want to send them an oxygen tank, the logistics of it may not be that easy, right? You can't just purchase one in Singapore and send it to them, but ask them whether there are ways of donating money to help them directly so that they can purchase the care that they need. But suppose even if we are not able to help those in India directly at this moment because of the logistical challenges, right? And we also know that many governments are directly sending aid, including the Singapore government. So hopefully this will make a difference. But let's perhaps focus on our friends, our neighbors, our colleagues from India and from the other countries that are badly affected. Let us reach out to them. This is a time where we can give them our time, our kindness, our compassion. Just to talk to them, listen to them, let them share their feelings, let them share their grief. A lot of us may feel uncomfortable, right? If we know that our friend or colleague have lost a family member recently, we may feel shy or ashamed to ask them. We may feel that, oh, they may not want to talk about it. But actually, many research have shown that many people who are grieving, you know, they do want to talk about it. Maybe they do need someone to talk to because some of them may be here alone. They may have no families, right? So I think if we approach them with kindness, with compassion, and of course, leave it to them whether they want to talk about it. We shouldn't force them to talk about it. But if they want to share, if they want to talk about their grieving, their bereavement, their sadness, let us give them our time. Because giving them our time, this is something that is truly priceless. And this is one way we can help those who are suffering and in Singapore, right? And that also got me to reflect that many of us in Singapore may also have families abroad, like myself, my parents, and my extended family are in Malaysia, which is the country of my birth. So I'm also very grateful that they are all well so far, despite the rising numbers, even in Malaysia. And in fact, in many of our neighboring countries, Indonesia, Philippines, some of us may well have families there. The numbers are also not great in those countries. In fact, even in Cambodia, Thailand, the numbers are rising. And I suppose we ought to be grateful to our extended family, those who are back home, like for myself, for my sister in particular, and the rest of my extended family, for I know that they will look after my parents and each other should the worst happen, right? Because with the border closure, as much as I would love to, and similarly for those of you with family abroad, as much as you would love to be able to return to see them, it's just not quite possible at the moment. Or even if it's possible, you have the quarantine on back in those countries, and also when you return to Singapore, so it's not the easiest thing to do. And I think, yeah, so it's a time for us to reflect and to be grateful and to be generous, right? And um, now I also want to reflect a bit on perhaps my life before COVID, and I'm sure many of you do, right? You want your life to go back to the pre-pandemic era. And a big feature of my life back then would be me doing quite a lot of medical volunteer work. A lot of it would be with Suchi Foundation, but some of it with other organizations. So some of this medical work will be within Singapore, but plenty more in our neighboring countries like the Philippines, Cambodia, and Sri Lanka. Um, Now, so on the surface, it's easy to think that when we do charity work, it's only about giving and serving others. No doubt this is true, especially if we select carefully the areas, communities that we choose to provide care. And I suppose I try to select carefully and go to the communities in need where you can really make a difference to them. And I think just when we are there, the act of giving, the joy of giving, for those of you who have ever sincerely served others, right? And I'm sure many of you would have experienced this joy. I'm sure you will agree that the joy of giving is always better and more profound than the joy of receiving, right? Is something that perhaps lasts longer and something that uplift our spirit much more than when we receive material things, right? I mean, during the medical missions in the neighboring countries, I can always recall how I could be working 12-hour days, several days in a row, and yet I don't feel any tiredness during the period. And in fact, the only time I feel the tiredness is when I arrive home in Singapore. Then I realize, gosh, I will be physically exhausted, mentally too, perhaps. But the mental uplifting, the spiritual uplifting from this joy giving is very, very worth it and makes up for all any of the um, physical tiredness that I may feel after I get home. So besides giving, right, when you serve others, I have learned over the years that these acts of giving, right, are also important opportunities for me to reflect and to be thankful for what I have. And to begin with, it made me reflect and to be grateful for my own personal good health, physically and mentally. Because if I'm not in good health, I would not be in a position to be able to serve others, right? So I think we mustn't forget that. But of course, even if our health is not so good, we can still serve others, but with some modification. And I would certainly hope that as I get older, and if my health is not as good as it is now, I would still be able to do so. And of course, looking at the bigger picture, I'm also very grateful for all the opportunities that I have had in my life to be able to train, to become a doctor, to become a specialist. I'm grateful to all the teachers that I had over the years and even now who have trained me, who have taught me so much. And then I'm also grateful for my job that I earn a decent income and hence I have the financial means to pay my own way when I serve others in the overseas countries because for myself, I always believe in paying my own way and not to have any other organization pay for me. So it would mean starting with booking my own annual leave, paying for my flight ticket, paying for my hotel, my accommodation and food when I'm out there, so that not only am I giving my time, my expertise, my kindness, my compassion, but I'm also paying my own way. And of course, I'm very grateful that I'm able to do so, right? And going even further, it's also an opportunity for me to reflect on my parents. I'm forever grateful to them for their love and kindness in bringing me up, supporting my education, bringing me up to be a righteous individual. I'm also grateful to my wife for always supporting me when it matters. Earlier, when our children were younger, it would not have been easy for her to look after the kids alone when I'm away. So I'm always grateful for her support to allow me to go. And also gratitude to my two children who have taught me so much about life. And if nothing else, they have taught me to be even more grateful to my own parents. And I'm sure all of you can reflect in your own ways, right? When you are able to serve others, if you're able to reflect more deeply, then you realize that there's so much to be thankful for. The next bit of reflection I'd like to share would be on my day-to-day work for my patients, right? I often get asked by my colleagues and also my patients on how I could always be so patient towards them, how I could give them so much time, how I could always be kind to them, even if it's at the end of a long working day. How come I don't get angry? I don't show my tiredness. I don't show my frustration. And I do reflect on this a lot. And I suppose the way I look at it is, for me as a healthcare worker and for others who are healthcare workers, I think it's very important to find meaning in what you do. In fact, that would be true for any work that we do. If we are able to find meaning, then the work will never be stressful. The hours will never seem long. So what do I mean by finding meaning, right? I think as a doctor, perhaps it's easy to complain that, oh, there are so many patients who need our help, and there are so many more patients that we need to see, when we are in the middle of a busy clinic. And that is the danger if our paradigm is always that of me, us, providing care to others, right? And the patients need us. But for me, I find that if I change my paradigm and look beyond that and look at my patients, every one of my patients as being my teacher. Because even at this stage of my career, I have been practicing as a doctor for more than 20 years, I think, coming up to 20 years rather, not more than 20 years. I'm still learning things from my patients every day. Every single one of my patients, I'm still learning something new from them. So I treat all my patients as my teacher, right? So instead of saying that, oh, I got 20 patients who need my help, I see them as 20 teachers who have something to teach me, and 20 teachers whom I have a lot of gratitude towards. So it's with this mindset, that's how I lead my life day to day as a doctor, seeing my patients as teachers, seeing my patients as people who choose to trust me and who choose to give me the opportunity to do something good, to do something positive, right? Because I'm grateful that being a doctor, like it or not, I'm helping people every day, right? But you could be cynical and just say, gosh, too many patients, not enough time, as I've said earlier. But rather, if you see these people as people who have chosen to trust us and to give us the opportunity to serve them, to do something good, then I think there's a lot to be grateful for, right? And this is a poem that I've written to my patients, dedicated to my patients, and I'll just read this poem up to you. It's titled An Ode to My Patients, and it's written in Old English. So, patiently thou had waited for me, opening up thy hearts, healing seeketh thee. With compassion, loving kindness, and empathy, with respect, gratitude, humility, and sincerity, I will try my best for thee, for greatest teachers thou hast been for me. Right? So yeah, just something I felt I wanted to share. And my last sharing would be on a topic that is very close to my heart, which is that of food wastage. I think this statistics that I put up here is perhaps a few years old, but I think even if it's a few years old, the numbers are quite staggering, right? That on average, right, we in Singapore, we waste nearly 800,000 tons of food per year. 800,000 tons, right? 1 ton is 1,000 kilograms. It's a shocking number. I mean, what does that equate to? It equates to 140 kilograms of food per year per person. Taking the average weight of 70 kilograms, that is, the weight of 2 human beings a year per person per year. You may think, really, are we responsible for so much wastage? But this is the statistics. I think it's on average. Some of us may waste more, some may waste less, but it's also equivalent to throwing away 2 bowls of rice a day, right? And very little of this food is actually recycled. Although there are startups now who are trying to recycle this food into something more useful. But I think the reason why I bring this up is, I think if we can develop a strong sense of gratitude towards our food and all the individuals who have provided us with the food, right? If we can give thanks, starting with the farmer, right, who have to work very hard under the hot sun, facing all the unpredictability of the climate change, extreme weather. Sometimes they have good crops, sometimes they have bad crops. If you can think about how hard they have to work for that every single grain of rice that appear in our rice bowl. If we think about all the people in logistics, right? People in the factory to process the food, to transport the food to us. More than 90% of the food in Singapore comes from outside Singapore. So there's a strong logistic chain to get our food to us, to the supermarkets, right? To the shops, to the markets. If you think about the number of people involved to get food to our table and the people to cook our food, right? It could be ourselves, if we are a good cook, could be our helper at home, could be our parents, could be our spouse, could be someone in the restaurant, our hawker uncle and aunties, right? So much effort is needed to get the food onto our table. And yet, if we think about it, we are throwing away 2 bowls of rice a day. So I think if we can reflect on it and be really, really sincerely thankful and give thanks to everything and everyone that has made the food possible, then I think it will be extremely, extremely difficult to even waste a grain of rice, right? Which is what I try to do, that every single last grain of rice, bit of food, I clear my plate that way. So as to do my part not to waste food, because I think it's just morally wrong as well. There are still a lot of malnutrition around the world. And yes, the food that we waste and throw away will not get to the people who are starving, but it's just a moral thing, right? How we in Singapore, where we are quite well off compared to many communities in the world, but just because we are well off does not give us the moral right to be so wasteful with our food. So I hope I can leave you with this reflection to have a lot of gratitude for our food so that we don't waste it, right? So I suppose my take-home message then, or take-home messages, is I think it's very important for us to have a profound sense of gratitude to the many things and many people around us. And it can be a very powerful force for many positive thoughts and actions in our life. And being generous is one way to put those positive thoughts into action. And then this can serve as powerful pathways for us to lead a life that is more peaceful and contented. And lastly, I just like to leave you all with an aspiration that we can all strive together to make this world a place where there's less suffering for all living beings. And I'd like to also thank today's sharing by expressing my most sincere gratitude to all the great Dharma masters who have been so gracious and generous in sharing their knowledge and practices, and also to all my Dharma friends, my Kayana Mitras, who have taught me and inspired me as I walk the middle path. And thank you all, brothers and sisters, for your time today. May you all be safe and healthy. May you all be well and happy always. Sadhu.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Thank you, Dr. Ho. We'll open now for questions to anyone from the floor. Would like to ask any question? If not, I have one here. I'll start the ball rolling from someone. Dear Dr. Ho, are there any advice on how to deal with bodily pain due to sickness like COVID and cancer? How do we keep a positive mindset and maintain gratitude in difficulties and facing challenges in life towards the contentment? Thank you so much for your generosity and kindness.
Yeah, thanks for that very powerful question. I am not sure if I have all the answers. Partly because I have not yet experienced very severe pain and very severe suffering myself. Yes, I've had, periods where I've been unwell, I don't feel so good. But I'm not sure if those would equate to those who are maybe suffering from cancer, the sort of pain that they can experience. I understand it can be very severe. But I suppose I can just share some general principles as a medical practitioner. I think, first of all, to also not reject any help that we are given from our healthcare practitioners. If you are offered painkillers because we are in pain, yes, there can be side effects, but perhaps to be more readily to accept those. I don't think it's necessary to say that, oh, I want to bear the pain because I deserve the pain. I want to feel the suffering. I think, yes, we can accept help when it's given. But suppose some of the ways where we can help to lessen the pain is if we reflect, to maybe be mindful, some meditation practice, to first of all start by radiating loving kindness to ourselves, radiating loving kindness to the body parts where we are experiencing pain, to be kind to those parts, to reflect very deeply. I have had some Dharma practitioners who have told me that has helped. So again, I'm just sharing what other people have shared with me. But I believe it can, being kind to ourselves, being kind to our pain, that can go some ways. And just trying to be grateful for all the things that we have. And sometimes we must also be grateful for the healthcare that we have, right? Because we may say, oh, I'm dying, I'm having palliative care. We can say, oh, this is so sad, it's the end. But we need to reflect on what if we don't even have access to healthcare? What if we don't even have access to good palliative care that we have in Singapore? Our suffering will be even worse than it is, right? So I think we must not forget to be grateful for all the help that we get. And I hope that by doing so, that can lessen some of the pain. And one day, I'm sure ill health will come my way as well. And when that happens, and when I contemplate and practice, I may be able to share from a first-person perspective. But I'm sure there are other Dharma practitioners who have gone through greater suffering than me, and perhaps they might be in a better position to provide a better answer.
Thank you, Dr. Ho. Any question from the floor? Also quiet. I have another one sent to me. How do we comfort the dying and those that are dear to ourselves when we know that that we are very attached to them? Especially we have so much gratitude for what they have done in our lives. So that is the question.
I think that is also not an easy question to answer, but I'll try. I would say that it's easier to comfort them if we have gratitude, right? If we are able to appreciate those who are close to us, or maybe not so close, for all the things that they have done. Not necessarily for us, it's not about what they have done for us. Of course, if they have done things for us, it's easier to relate to that. But for all the things that they have done to others, it will be true that every human beings have done good things for others, for themselves as well, right? We may or may not know what are the good things that they have done. But if we can, I think one of the ways to comfort people, right, when they are dying, is to remind them of all the good things that they have done for themselves, for others, for people who are close to them, not so close to them. We've all done it, and sometimes we forget, right? And just being there, I think first of all, if people are dying, we should be good listeners first, right? We listen to them, let them speak. We shouldn't go in with an agenda and say, oh, we want to tell them this and that. They may not want to hear from us. So I think a lot of wisdom is also needed. So I think first of all, be a good listener, listen to them, let them share their thoughts, let them share their anger, fear, frustration, whatever. Hopefully they will share some of the joys as well. But after they finish sharing and with their permission, and if you feel that it's safe to do so, then perhaps you share with them on some of their joys, some of the good things that they have done. Maybe asking them to reflect on some of the positive things that they have done. Let them bring back happy memories. And hopefully this will lessen their pain. So I would say that that is what I would do. Certainly when, like right now, I have at least two colleagues who have, one is a mom, one is a dad who passed away in a different country, and of course they've not been able to see them or attend their funeral. So when I talk to them, this is what I do. These are some of the principles that I keep to, and I like to think that I'm making a positive difference. But again, I think there are many other Dharma practitioners who may be wiser, who may have better suggestions as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ho. Any question from the floor again? No? Sure. Okay, I have a last question then. The person asked, what can we do for ourselves to prepare for the challenges or the fear and sadness that will overcome us when we are not able to go to the country to see our loved ones and they pass away or they are very, very ill.
Wow. This is a question that is very close to my heart, right? Because as I say, I've not seen my parents since Chinese New Year last year, right? So it's a question that I ask myself all the time. I think there's a lot we can do. Let's start by being proactive at the moment, right? I'm sure, first of all, let's be grateful for internet, right? With Zoom, WhatsApp, all the video calls and all that. I like to think that keeping in touch with our family is not a problem for most countries, right? We can call them at any time, video Zoom in, different time zone maybe, but I'm sure we can find time. So I think let's start by making time to spend with our loved ones. If we don't get to see them, to call them very regularly, to check in on them. Because especially if it's like parents, right? I think there's nothing sadder for parents not to be able to see their own children. And in some ways, I feel that that sadness may be even more than that of the children not being able to see their parents, right? And if they are still in good health at the moment, we want to keep them in good health for as long as possible, right? We don't want them to fall victim to COVID or something else. So I think we must do our part, right, to positively, I mean, besides talking to them, spending time and talking about nice things, right? But we must constantly remind them of the need for them to do their part, to follow all the precautions, for the countries where things are out of control, they should be at home virtually all the time, wearing masks, hand hygiene, social distancing, because it's quite easy for them to forget, especially if they're in a country where all these things are not emphasized by the government or not reminded constantly. Here we got all the ambassadors right around us. We are constantly reminded of the need to do so. Everybody is wearing masks, so if we are the only one not wearing masks, straight away we are aware, gosh, I need to wear one. But if they're in a country where few people are wearing masks, then it's so easy to forget. And they say, oh, the government is not asking us to wear a mask. They're not enforcing anything. Why should we follow? So I think that is perhaps the most important. All the rules that we have in Singapore, right, that is serving a purpose. It has kept us very safe. And let us keep to Singapore's standard and remind them that, hey, this is what they need to do, not to be complacent. And I think this will go a very, very long way in preventing them from being a victim, and of course for the extended family as well, because family members who come and visit them, we need to remind our cousins, our uncles and aunties to follow the same rules. So I think this is perhaps the most powerful thing that we can do, that we need to be a messenger to keep reminding them, even if it sounds like a broken tape recorder, right? I mean, but we need to almost irritate them and say, please do this for me, do this for yourself, number one. And then number two, I think we should constantly encourage our loved ones to maintain good health, right? Because it's so easy to forget, to eat healthily, to eat a balanced diet, to exercise, to get some sunshine every day, meaning that they should try to step outside safely if possible, if there's a garden, a balcony, exercise. Because I think this is still the best protection from COVID, because I think despite the best of our effort, right, if it's widespread around us, even doing our best, we follow all the rules, we may still get it, right? So it's the prevention, right? Keeping healthy so that in case they were to fall ill, at least they would hopefully do well. They would have minimal symptoms and recover from it. I think that's all that we can do really. And yeah, keep in touch with them and just pray. Whether we believe in prayers or not, I think pray for them to be safe. Radiate metta to them, radiate metta to everyone, right? People that we don't know, that they will all be well and happy, right? So yeah, that would be what I do myself, and happy to hear from others as well. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ho. Can we say three sadhus for and show our gratitude for today's sharing by Dr. Ho? Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Before we end, we would like to share um, our metta and merits to um, the people around the world as well. First, we have someone who just passed away, Mr. Harvey Ho Uy. Let us share our merits with him afterwards. And we would like also to dedicate our metta and share all our good merits and to all sentient beings, especially those who are in the Tan Tock Seng hospital cluster. May they not get COVID, and those who had got it, may they recover well. As well as those people in India and other countries, may the COVID situation improve. Let us share all our metta with them. So may all beings be free from suffering, and may the fear struck be free from fear. May the grieving be free from grief, and so too may all beings be. So let us go to our normal chanting. Dedication of merits. Let us invite all sentient beings to participate in our acquired merits. Ettavata cha amhehi sambatang punya sampadang sabbe deva anumodantu sabba sampati siddhya. Ittavata cha amhehi sampadang punya sampadang sabbe bhuta anumodantu sabba sampati siddhya ittavata cha amhehi sampadang punya sampadang sabbe satta anumodantu sabba sampati siddhya. Let us dedicate the merits to all our departed relatives and friends, as well as remembering the 88-year-old lady who just passed away at Tan Tock Seng Hospital. Let us share our merits. Idang me nyati nang ho tu sukita hon tu nyatayo. Idang me nyati nang ho tu sukita hon tu nyatayo. Idang me nyati nang ho tu sukita hon tu nyatayo. End of service dedication. I dedicate the merits which I have accumulated to the cultivation of my mind in order to bring happiness and benefits to all sentient beings. I dedicate the merits to all my parents, children, spouse, relatives, friends, colleagues, and my adversaries, wishing them long life, good health, happiness, and prosperity. May we never part from the Triple Gem, and may we always walk the path towards enlightenment. Let us pay homage to the Triple Gem. Arahang Sambuddho Bhagawa Buddhang Bhagawantang Abhivademi. Swakato Bhagavata Dhammo Dhammang Namasami. Supatipano Bhagavato Sawaka Sangho Sanghang Namami. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Thanks again, Dr. Ho. And thank you, brothers and sisters, for joining us. Hope to see you all next week.